Welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Anna. I'm a full-time book editor and indie author. I currently have one book already published, and I'm working on final drafting its sequel, which is sitting at around 180,000 words. Actually, let me show you something. I may or may not have very self-indulgently paid a lot of money for this to be printed out, but it was worth it. Look at her, she's perfect, she's beautiful. I cannot wait to have this book finished. There is still work to be done, but the goal is to have it published by the end of this year. I'll talk about all of that later. For now, if you are not new to my channel, if you've been here before, you can probably tell I'm not filming in the same location. That is because I have moved. For the first time in 4 years, I'm not living in a tiny house. And that has been such an interesting and sort of bittersweet transition for me. It is also blizzarding outside. Goodness gracious, I apologize for any changes in the lighting. Let's just do this really quick. I think a lot of those experiences enriched my writing in ways that almost nothing else has. That being said, we all have to drop an anchor now and again in life, and I think that time for me is now. I have lived a very spontaneous life. I have lived a life where whatever needs my attention that day is what receives my attention that day. And then I've also gone through eras of life where I've been incredibly routine oriented, and those are always the seasons of life where I get more accomplished. I think organically my mind is very scattered, and so I tend to gravitate towards a more chaotic day-to-day life, but I know that what I need is routine. That is what actually helps me stay organized, chip away at my goals. And when I think about my biggest goals, none of them cannot be achieved through slow, systematic chipping away at them. And what is slow, systematic chipping away at something if not routine? This brings me to the purpose of this video, which is to establish a sustainable, realistic writing routine. Now I'm calling this a writing routine, but I'm not a full-time writer, so this routine is not going to orbit around writing the way that I would like for it to. I think as writers, we can all agree that there is power in the words that you use in life. And I think that by intentionally calling this a writing routine, even though it's obviously going to incorporate plenty of different elements in my day-to-day life, it is going to keep writing at the forefront of my mind, and that is ultimately my goal. Now, there are plenty of videos already in existence about creating a sustainable routine for yourself, but I want this one to be a little different. I used to think that when you woke up every morning, you were imbued with a certain amount of creative energy, and as you went through the day, that energy would drain sort of like a battery, and so you had to be very selective about when and where you use that creative energy. I have recently realized that is dumb, that is stupid, that is wrong. You can regenerate creative energy throughout the day. And that's why I think creating a routine that is strategic in that you use your energy, you regenerate your energy. You use your energy, you regenerate your energy. That is the kind of a routine that us creatives, I think, need to pursue. I will say that I've already tried this on for size over the last couple of days, and I think I might have really done something here. Like, this is really working for me, especially as an editor. If you've been here on my channel since the beginning, then you've definitely heard me gripe about how I have long struggled with the management of my creative energy. I've often felt that because my work takes so much creative energy and because my passion for writing also takes so much creative energy, I have to choose between the two. And the reality is, I think I have finally figured out a hack where I can do both on a daily basis and still feel very functional, very creatively full, and inspired. I don't know about you, but I definitely for years of my life had this misinterpretation of what a routine really was supposed to be, and that I thought it was just sort of an extravagant to-do list. And it was a to-do list that you just ordered in a certain way that was the most logical, with habit stacking and this, that, and the other. I have definitely gone down that rabbit hole of atomic habits and all of these different things. I am somebody who has struggled with productivity, staying on task, focus. Again, I have long griped about how I'm a highly distractible person. So creating these systems is really integral to me being a successful person, which is why I take them very seriously. But a good routine is not just an extravagant to-do list. There is strategy behind it. There has to be intention, thought, purpose, meaning, and I think I have finally figured it out. So that's going to be the purpose of this video. The goal is that this will be applicable to everybody in one way or another, whether or not you're like me and you work for yourself, or if you're going to school, or if you're somebody who's working a traditional 8-to-5 job or shift work. I have done all of those things, and I can see that this would be applicable to all of those things. Now, obviously, I do work for myself. I have for a very long time, so I'm used to having a lot of flexibility in my day-to-day life, and I acknowledge that that is an insane privilege. Again, I worked a traditional 8-to-5 job for years of my life. I've been working since I was 15. I definitely understand being strapped for time, but I do think that if you really want this to happen, there are ways to make it happen. Where there's a will, there's a way. That is how I started the 5 a.m. Writers Club years and years ago. As I was working a traditional 8-to-5 job, I'd get up at 4:30 every morning and I'd write before work. I did that not because I enjoyed it, but because I had a will and that was a way. So I think that this is ultimately the purpose and sort of the energy that I want this video to have. I want it to feel like everything is possible, and everything is possible. We just have to try different things on for size, and through process of elimination, we'll find a system that really works for us. Now, inevitably, there are going to be variables that I have overlooked, things that are going to trip me up, things that may present a snag in the process, but the goal is that by the end of this video, I will not only have put together a sustainable, realistic writing routine for myself, but to also come away from this feeling like I understand myself as a creative person, and I'm hoping all of this will also help you. So naturally, you're invited to come along. With all of that being said, let's go ahead and get started. If you're a sparkling water person like I am, these are delicious. I had the raspberry vanilla kind last night. It was absolutely great. Now I've got the lavender cucumber. Very pinky up. Very nice. Anyway, it's 10:30. I took about 20 minutes to get myself ready. There is just something about putting yourself together in the day that I swear lends itself to productivity. I definitely think that when it comes to putting together a routine strategically, like we've been talking about, it's about knowing yourself, knowing your proclivities, knowing your habits, knowing the things that trip you up, and sort of creating something that navigates all of that and suits you. And for me, putting myself together just makes me feel more productive. It's like making my bed every morning. There's just something about it that starts the day off right. I've been going through like a little glitter phase. Well, actually, a 20-year-long glitter phase. I've always loved glitter. If I could walk around like a fairy all the time, I probably would. I just want to look ethereal. I want to look mythical. So anyway, nobody asked for this information. I thought about doing a little get ready with me this morning, but I already suspect that this is going to be kind of a long video, so I decided not to do it. Anyway, I got a good 2.5 hours of writing in this morning. As you know, I am final drafting the second book in my sci-fi series, and I am first drafting the first book in a fantasy series that I have been planning since 2013. If there's one thing to know about me, it's that I spend an astronomical amount of time allowing my stories to incubate. I've never been one of those authors who just churns out books, obviously. so I only have one book published. However, I am a writer through and through. I have been writing since the age of 13. I write almost every single day. It is what makes me feel sane. It is what I enjoy the most. I am very much married to the expression of this as an art form, more so than I am the production and commodification of my art. And that's not to say anything against people who churn out books. I envy you, if anything, and I definitely need to get my shit together a little bit in that way, because if you want to be a full-time author, then that is just something you're going to have to do eventually. And I'm trying to get there, particularly with the publication of the second book in my sci-fi series, which I'm not even going to tell you how many years ago I published the first book. It has been a while. It's been a while. I think, unfortunately, in some ways, I've kind of even outgrown that series. Well, it's not that I've outgrown it. The story itself is so good. And the end of book 2, I absolutely promise you, is something that you'll never be able to predict. It scratches a certain itch for me. It's definitely like my passion project, and it has been for a very long time. But recently I've been craving something that's a little more mature, that's a little grittier, a little darker, and I found my fantasy series to be really fulfilling in that way. It is very adult, it is very dark, and there's something about it that I have just really loved immersing myself in, even though it's dark and gritty and kind of traumatic. I don't know what that says about me, but I have felt very at home there recently. And even though I'm final drafting my second book in my sci-fi series, it has been nice to kind of offset that very different story with this very different story. And for the first time in my life, I've really felt capable of writing 2 very different books at the same time. And I think it's been because of this very different strategic routine that I've been trying on. So I've been basically first drafting my fantasy series in the morning. I'll do that for a couple of hours. Now we're getting ready to shift gears. I'm going to do something that's going to kind of replenish my creative well, and then we're diving in to work for the day. I have a lot of editing I need to do, a lot, so it's going to be an intense work day. And then after that, we're going to do something to replenish ourselves a little bit, and then I will be working on the final draft of my second book in my sci-fi series, which is the next book that I hope to publish. So basically, I'm working on my fantasy book in the morning, my sci-fi series at night, and in the middle of the day, I am working on editing. Like I said, I've tried this on for size for the last few days, and it's definitely been working for me, and today I can feel it's already working for me again. I think this is going to definitely be even more effective in the summer. Going outside in nature, I will wax poetic about it forever. It is my #1 go-to way for replenishing my creative well. But with the weather recently, it's just been very hard to go outside and do anything. So I think today what I'm going to do is either do some art. I've been trying to pick up drawing again, which has been a really interesting experience, but I enjoy it and I enjoy the tangibility of it. I think it's really important for me to distance myself from screens as much as I can during these little regenerating activities, if you will. Like I've said before on this channel, I kind of struggle with documenting my day-to-day life because it ends up being a lot of very redundant B-roll where I'm filming myself in front of a computer, typing. That is all that I do. I'm either writing my own book or working on somebody else's, and those are the 2 things that occupy the vast majority of my time. So if I can spend some time away from screens, that is always ideal. So I've been trying to push myself to do things that are a little more tangible, and I think drawing, sketching, coloring, those sorts of things have been very good for me and very good for my eye strain as well. In the summer, I'll definitely be doing more hikes out in the woods, things that are more outdoorsy, like getting some fresh air. Like even just going outside and sitting in the sun for 10 minutes and just doing a quick meditation is very effective for me. So in the summer, a lot of these strategies will change, but for now, I'm doing what I can with what I've got. And I think today I'll be doing some drawing and some sketching, maybe a little coloring, and I'll also be doing an at-home yin yoga practice. If you've never done yoga in general, I encourage you to give it a try. Yoga has almost single-handedly completely changed my life. I picked it up in 2016 in the middle of like a deep depression, and it literally single-handedly pulled me out of that. I don't know how to describe it. I haven't really actually studied yoga, but there is definitely something about it that I have felt very aligned with, and it brings me back to present, which I think is very important. But first, I think I'm gonna make myself a snack or something. I wanna get some food before I dive in to editing. The last thing I wanna do is finally get focused and then feel like that momentum is interrupted by the fact that I am hungry all of a sudden. So we're gonna be doing that. We're gonna probably get ourselves a drink of some kind, a nice little beverage. But first we're gonna be doing a little bit of drawing, a little bit of listening to music, just to ease into the day. And I think that that's gonna be a great little break. So I'm gonna take you along with me. This is a little chaotic, a little sporadic. I apologize. Let's go ahead and get going. We're gonna jump into replenishing creative energy and then editing, and I'll touch base with you guys after that. Good morning. It is the following day. I definitely intended to follow up with you guys last night after a full day of my new routine, but unfortunately, I ran out of time. And of course I would. Of course, the day that I decide to film this routine, it wouldn't go the way that I'd planned for it to go, but I think that that's maybe a good message. I think it's kind of important to acknowledge that a big part of creating a routine that works for you is creating a routine that affords for a certain level of flexibility, that leaves room for error, because life almost never goes according to plan. As you might have noticed, everything was going quite well up until I started editing. And editing is such an interesting job in that it's very challenging to discern how much time you're actually going to have to invest in a certain project. Every developmental, copy, line edit, they are all different because they all depend on that specific project. And yesterday I was working on a developmental edit that was actually going quite smoothly until I had discovered a plot hole. Let me just get a quick sip of this, hang on. I'm actually too scared, it's so hot. No, I can't do it. Never mind. All of that is just to say that I definitely spent more time editing yesterday than I was expecting to, and that was because I found a plot hole. I also, however, came up with not one, but two solutions to the plot hole, and I'm really impressed with both of them. Not only do those solutions solve the plot hole in and of itself, like logistically, but they mesh really well with the story as a whole in terms of the symbolism, the character dynamics, what seems reasonable and realistic for the story. There's a lot that goes in to being a book editor. It's a very high pressure job, and I think sometimes from the outside looking in, it seems very leisurely. In fact, I got that impression yesterday when I quickly looked through some of the footage that I filmed. It does kind of look like I've got this job where I am just paid to read books, and honestly, it's incredibly high pressure. There's so much more work to it. And I have a lot of people who approach me and say like, I'm interested in being a book editor. And more often than not, I tell them, no, you're not. I don't consider editing just a transaction. I don't think it's you give me your manuscript manuscript, I'll pick it apart, I'll tell you how it needs to be improved, and then I'll submit it back to you. I genuinely think that it needs to be a partnership. I genuinely think that you need to be a safety net to your author. You need to make sure that they are well taken care of and that you are as committed to their vision as they are, and that you are actually giving them something that is worth their money, like especially in this economy. So I take my job incredibly seriously, and I think I just felt compelled to give that disclaimer that, again, from the outside looking in, it looks like I live kind of a cush life, but it is high pressure, it is a lot of stress, and I definitely have days where I'm editing for 16 hours a day, back to back to back to back, to get a project delivered on time, and it's not always easy, and it's definitely not for the faint of heart. But I do think that that makes the necessity of a more structured day-to-day routine all the more important, because otherwise I tend to lapse into what I've been doing for the last couple of months, which has just been living a very chaotic life where I am pulled from one project to the next, and I don't have any balance on a daily basis. God, I would of course inhale my scalding hot tea. This leads really well into my next point, which I think is my concern regarding this video. From the very beginning, I felt a little worried about talking about a realistic writing routine because realistic is so subjective and it varies from person to person. And I have plenty of friends who are working full-time jobs, who have children, who would look at this routine and laugh because it is so impossible for them to do anything even remotely like this. And I understand that, and I don't want it to seem like I'm tone deaf or I'm talking about something that is so easy for me and you all should be able to do it too because it's so easy. Like, no, that's not the point. The point really is that we all have different obstacles in life. We all have things that we have to work around. We all have different personalities and temperaments and proclivities and habits. And I want us to look at routines that aren't just routines, that aren't just going through the motions, but that are intentional. And I think that that can work for everybody. Again, I have definitely worked all sorts of jobs. I've worked full-time jobs, I've worked shift work, I've worked doubles, I've worked night shift one time, which was terrible. And even though I work for myself now, and even though ideally I have balance in my day-to-day life, that is not always the case. And sometimes it can literally be more stressful than the full-time jobs that I used to have where I'd work 8 to 5. So I think my point is just to keep an open mind and to look at the different ways that you function and just be honest about the way that you function. Use your time more constructively because let's face it, for example, we all use our phones probably a little bit too much. I am unfortunately one of those people who has been so negatively impacted by the uprise in short form media. Like, I can definitely tell that my attention span has been compromised. And so pulling myself away from TikTok has been a huge thing for me for quite a while. And it's actually a big reason why I decided to move to YouTube, which is distinctly long form content. When I'm watching a video, let's say before bed, it's relaxing, it's enjoyable. I don't feel like I'm crying over a sad cancer story one second and then laughing over a funny duck the next. There's just something about the emotional and psychological whiplash of the scroll hole that I cannot deal with anymore. And so I think historically I have looked to that because it is such a good way of disassociating and sort of like, you know, disengaging from life and relaxing. I have used the scroll hole for my breaks for way too long. And it's absolutely alarming how much time I end up wasting because I'm lost in the scroll hole. Find ways to constructively use your leisure time. Try to pull yourself out of a habit and try something new and see how you feel and give it maybe a week, you know, give it some time to really gain some traction in your life. And I think things like drawing or going for a walk or doing yoga, these things bring me so much happiness. They actually take me closer to various other goals that I have in my life than the scroll hole ever fucking could. So just don't. You know what I mean? Just give it a try. I said this in my first vlog ever on this channel, and I'll say it again. Our creative output is a direct reflection of our creative input. I truly believe you need to be feeding yourself well, like a good, healthy, balanced diet that isn't just scrolling on TikTok. So just pick your media, I think, a little more intentionally, and you're already going to be setting yourself up for success. And start small. I definitely started this whole routine very slowly, very incrementally, to where it was actually just, I'm gonna write every morning. period. I don't care how long it is. I don't care if I'm just rereading what I've written yesterday, but I'm going to start my morning every morning with a finger on the pulse of this book, and I want to keep it at the forefront of my mind. That was how it started. Then I started to actually write for a good couple hours, and then I thought, this is great, but now I'm too tired to edit, so what am I gonna do? I'd go take a little walk or something and refill my creative well, and then before I knew it, I was ready to edit. Then I'd edit, and I'd say, God, I would love to be working on A Dark Sky Opens this afternoon, but I'm feeling a little drained. What can I do? Do some yoga or something, do some drawing, do a meditation, like literally the sky is the limit. And then I ended up working on 2 different manuscripts, very different manuscripts, all in the same day, while also putting in a full day of editing. And at the end of the day, this was all really inspired by just one single want, which was for more structure in my day. Because I haven't really gotten into it, but the move itself was chaotic. Moving out of a tiny house, finding a place to park it, getting the chickens relocated. They're actually out back right now. Like, it's been a whole thing. After I moved, I got super sick for 3 weeks, which I never get sick, and it was just, it felt like one thing after another, and I've just been behind for a very long time. And I thought, I need to figure this out. I need to figure out how to restore balance to my day-to-day life. And that was just where it all began. And slowly but surely and incrementally, I explored various different things that have started working. And that's really the intention of this video, is to just share that with you, possibly inspire you, and let you know that I've been in really complicated, tricky situations as well. And I think if there is a will, there is a way. Like I said before, sometimes that pisses people off. It definitely has pissed me off to hear that more than once in my life, but it's true. And that's why it's kind of annoying. So let me know if you guys have any suggestions, if you have any techniques that work for you in terms of routine. What does your routine look like? Let me know in the comments below, because I'm always open to hearing about other people's processes, and I think it's really fun to learn about them, and maybe I'll incorporate some of them into my own routine. But for now, I feel like this is working for me. And I do think that even though yesterday didn't really pan out the way that I wanted it to, it still panned out. Like, the first half of the day was exactly the way that I wanted it to be. Just because I spent a little more time editing rather than restoring my creative well, who cares? That's gonna happen. This is life. And editing is my job. It literally must come first. It is my only source of income. It's my career. So priorities. But I think ultimately this is all gonna really work out, and I hope that it works out for you as well. And yeah, returning very quickly back to the topic of me moving, I want to apologize for dropping off the face of the earth. I did not intend to. My original hiatus from YouTube was supposed to be 2 weeks, and it ended up being literally months. Life was just chaotic. That's all. There's like literally no other excuse. I drop content through Patreon for free all the time. So if you're interested in catching up with me there, you can always join. I drop videos every month there that are kind of like a stand-in for a newsletter. I call them like a coffee catch-up or something, where basically I talk about life updates, progress updates on my writing, and my TBR, all sorts of things. So if you're ever interested in finding me, you can find me there. I did have a couple of you, I love you by the way, for reaching out to me on Instagram wondering where the hell I had gone, because I just disappeared from YouTube. Thank you guys. And that's what gave me the idea to at least remind you I will be on Patreon all the time. You can find me there. But I should be back here, and I should be back here relatively consistently going forward, because I have found balance in my life. Kumbaya. I do have some plans and some surprises for you guys here on this channel. I'm really excited about trying something new. It might be a new series. Have an absolutely wonderful day. Good luck on all of your writing projects. And I hope you guys got something out of this video. I'll catch you here next time on my channel. Bye.